All right, we are all here.
Yes.
So I'm going to go ahead and call to order this January 28th meeting of the Planning Commission of the City of American Canyon. And Nicole, I believe you have something to read?
Yes, I do. Just one moment. Okay, so thank you for joining us for the January 28th City of American Canyon Planning Commission meeting. This meeting is being held entirely virtually in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The format for tonight will be similar to that of an in-person Planning Commission meeting. In addition to the Zoom platform, the meeting is being broadcast on cable TV channel 28, on YouTube, and streamed on the city's website. You will see members of the Planning Commission on your screen along with members of city staff. All members of the public will participate in listen-only mode. Public comment is invited for non-agendized items during the public comment forum section of the meeting and on each agenda item. When the item that you wish to speak on is called, please follow these steps to make your comment. When the chairman calls a particular item and you wish to speak on that item, click the raise hand button if joining by computer. If joining by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand. When it is your turn, I will announce your name and invite you to speak. You may see a message saying host would like you to unmute your microphone. If you get this message, click unmute myself and begin speaking. To unmute yourself by phone, dial *6 and begin speaking. Video will not be turned on, only audio. You have up to 3 minutes to make your comments to the Planning Commission. At the end of your 3 minutes, I will ask you to conclude your comments quickly, and I will mute your audio once you're done. Please only press *9 for items you wish to speak on, as raise hands buttons will be cleared at the end of each item. The agenda for this meeting is available on the city's website. As a standard practice, community members are allowed to comment one time on each agenda item. All votes for tonight's meeting will be taken by roll call. We ask for your patience when we are experiencing technical difficulties. This concludes my remarks.
Excellent, thank you. Do we have an image of the flag for the pledge?
Yes, we do. 1 moment.
If everybody would please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Can we move on to roll call, please?
Yes. Commissioner Altman?
Present.
Commissioner Malari?
Present.
Commissioner Wong?
Present.
Vice Chair Navarro?
Present.
Chair Gaw?
Present. Thank you. Do you have a comment before we go into public comment, Nicole?
There are no public comments.
Okay. So we're going to open public comment at this time. Public comment section is noted on the agenda. This is the time members of the public may comment on any item not appearing on the agenda. Under state law, matters presented under this section cannot be discussed or acted upon by the Planning Commission during this time. For items appearing on the agenda, the public will be invited to make comments at the appropriate time. It is very important to speak directly into your microphone, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. And we have nothing.
We have nothing at this time, Chair Gaw.
All right, so we are going to close public comment. Next item is agenda changes. Mr. Cooper, any agenda changes tonight?
Thank you, Chair Goff. Before I answer your question, I wanted to just congratulate you and Commissioner Malari on your reappointment to the Planning Commission.
Thank you. Getting the band back together.
Very nice. And we have no changes to the agenda.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Next item is consent calendar. We have one item 3.1, approval of the minutes for the November 19th, 2020 Planning Commission meeting. Do we have any motions by the commission?
I will make a motion that we approve the minutes of the November 19, 2020 Planning Commission meeting.
Thank you, Commissioner Altman. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Commissioner Wong.
Commissioner Altman?
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Commissioner Altman. Okay. Commissioner Malari?
Aye.
Commissioner Wong?
Aye.
Vice Chair Navarro,
Aye.
Chair Goff.
Aye. All right, thank you. Moving on to public hearings, we are item 4.1, continue the public hearing for the SDG Commerce 217 conditional use permit and mitigated negative declaration for the new 217,294 square foot wine warehouse on a 10.39 acre parcel at 1075 Commerce Court to the next regular planning commission meeting on February 25th, 2021, and that is PL 20-0008. And we have a staff report.
Thank you, Chair Goff and Commissioners. Just wanted to let you know that we received a late letter from the environmental review process, and we just need a little time to go through it and make sure that we respond to the comments. And so that will require us to move this hearing to your next Planning Commission meeting.
Do we have any questions from the commissioners on that? Not seeing any. Can we open public comment on this item? Do we have any public comments that you're aware of, Ms. Jones?
No public comment.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and close public comment on that item. Any commissioner comments? Not seeing any actions by the commission.
I'll move that we continue this item, the public hearing for SDG Commerce 217 conditional use permit and mitigated negative declaration until the next regular planning commission meeting on February 25th, 2021.
Thank you, Commissioner Altman. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Millar, thank you.
So Commissioner Altman,
Aye.
Commissioner Malari,
Aye.
Commissioner Wong,
Aye.
Vice Chair Navarro,
Aye.
Chair Goff.
Aye. All right, thank you. Moving on to 4.2. Consider a resolution to approve a conditional use permit for indoor commercial cannabis cultivation, manufacturing, and distribution at an existing 23,617 square foot industrial building at 180 Klamath Court in the city of American Canyon. This is file number PL 20-0018. We have a staff report.
All right, thank you, Chair and Commission. I wanted to introduce the project. I have a brief presentation, but just to let you know, as you probably are aware, this is the first cannabis application that we've brought to the Commission, so it's a bit of a milestone there. I wanted to also let you know we're very happy today. We have David Swartz. He's here filling in for Bill Ross from our City Attorney's Office. And we also have our police chief here. He was part of the whole cannabis ordinance process and helps review the applications. And then also we have Edison Bisnar from our Public Works Engineering Division, and they were very helpful in reviewing some of the utility needs for the project and getting answers and being able to resolve the issues. So I want to thank them for coming tonight. With that, I'll have a brief presentation for you. I'm going to go over the project, and then I'm happy to answer any questions you have. All right, so I'll start with the cover page here. Everyone can see it just fine, I expect.
Yes.
So here's an aerial image of the location. It's at 180 Klamath Court, and that is just north of the Union Pacific Railroad. As you go on the Highway 29, the bridge there over the railroad, if you're heading north, you just sort of cast your view to the left there, you'll see this cluster of industrial buildings, all single story. The surrounding buildings all there are all industrial in nature. If we look to the right there, we have Paley Loop and the highway. The highway there is banking up to get over top of the railroad. To the west, we have a rail spur, and then further west from that is the Sutter Home winery property. So it's pretty well there on a cul-de-sac, and it's kind of the setting. Here's a street view of the site. It's you can see it's a fairly modern building, very serviceable. Has parking in the front surface, and there is a gated, secure area for the yard in the rear and sides. We have 4 loading bays, so it's very serviceable for industrial uses. The proposed uses are all allowable in accordance with our cannabis ordinance. Has indoor cultivation, manufacturing both with volatile and non-volatile solvents, and then a delivery service, which is also referred to as a non-storefront retail. And just by a little bit of way of background, when the City Council was looking at what might be ideal cannabis businesses, they were really looking for fully integrated types such as this that has a variety of different types of cannabis permits and businesses to kind of get efficiency. The operation itself, when fully up and running, will have up to 30 people, and have a little table there showing how it's kind of breaks out among the different types of people that work there. And so you have management, cultivation, distribution, staff, manufacturing staff, and delivery, and so on. There's, I guess, on an average day, you've got about 5.5 delivery drivers working staggered shifts to kind of meet demands in a more fluid manner. The hours of operation are typical for industrial sites. Assume that they're 7 days a week potentially, and their cultivation and so on is a regular work day, 6 a.m. to 5 for a lot of people. And then delivery is a little more expensive, much like you have for delivery services of other goods. I wanted to just talk a little bit for a second, step back, explain a little bit more about the process itself. It was adopted a couple of years ago. We really had set up a 2-step process. We have what we call the Cannabis Business License. And so when somebody proposes an application, that's the process they go through initially. It's very extensive and it's technical. And so we require background checks and a host of technical studies to make sure that the business itself complies with the cannabis ordinance. When the ordinance was developed, there was concern that we want to be sure that we have transparency and extensive community involvement. And so we paired that technical process with a conditional use permit process. And that's really what we're here to do tonight, is to air this in a public forum. And the idea here is if anybody has anything to say, this is kind of the place to talk about it. As part of our process with any project, we send out notification early on to see if there's any issues with the neighbors, and we try to resolve them early on. But at the end of the day, we do have a process here for a public hearing. And so we kind of pair both the business license and the cannabis use permit, and then when we pass this process, then the applicant is available then to obtain their state licenses, because it requires local approval before they can get the state license. So with completing this process, if it's successful, then the city would authorize the state to issue licenses. And then after they get their state licenses, they would either build a new site, or fortunately in this case, there's tenant improvements for an existing property. That kind of fits the picture there. Just also by way of background, the City Council approved a maximum of 6 cannabis businesses in the city. And this was really a reflection of just not opening the doors to anybody. There was concern because the Green Island industrial area has very low vacancy, and the business community that's there was very concerned about being outbid for sites. And so we thought, well, we can start with 6 and kind of ease in this industry and kind of see how it goes. As it turns out, it's been a couple of years, and we're talking about the first cannabis application. So we didn't quite know what we'd expect when we were drafting the ordinance, But so far, it doesn't seem like we're being flooded with applications. So we're certainly within the limit that the council set. Over time, perhaps the council might change their mind, increase the number of permits it's allowed. But for now, we have 6, and this is 1. So we're certainly well within those limits. I talked about the technical aspect of a application. And so I have a list here of some of the things that's required both in our ordinance and also by state law when the applicant gets their licenses from the state. And so you can see this very extensive. I have a later chart that shows how they've complied and where one would find some of these things in their application. But it's a very rigorous process, be able to move forward to the conditional use permit where we are right now. The ordinance doesn't allow cannabis business just anywhere in town. You can see here on the left side of the screen here in the green area are areas that have zoning for industrial, general industrial, and even within that, to the southern part of our general industrial zone, we call the southern buffer zone, just to make sure that cannabis businesses are very well separated from sensitive uses such as schools and parks and residential zoning. And so that being said, there is still a very large area of town. It's in excess of 600 acres, and it's available for cannabis, and it is very well buffered from any sensitive uses. On the right-hand side here, I have a graphic that shows this particular location to its nearest sensitive use, which is the Little League field. And we have 1,400 feet. I believe the standard is 600 feet. So it's well beyond the buffer zone standards. And I know in some communities, they count physical barriers irrespective of the distance itself, among them railroad lines. So we have both a railroad line and a slough, and so it's buffered to heck. So there's a big difference there. Just as a summary of the technical aspect of the application, the background checks are completed. The process is done through the sheriff's office, and the results are delivered to our city attorney for confidentiality. And so those have been completed. We have a security plan, an emergency contact plan, odor control plan, labor peace agreement, solid liquid waste disposal plan, a community relations plan, and zero water footprint plan. There are others as well, but those are the main ones. And those are places where you could find them if you were to look through the application, which is all part of the packet. The application itself also has been on our website for some time, as I think all the way back to August. So public, if you're interested, have been able to look it up. Every discretionary project that comes to the Planning Commission is subject to the California Environmental Quality Act. The acronym for that is CEQA, which we like to call CEQA. And so this one does qualify for an exemption under CEQA as an infill project. The exemptions themselves aren't just sort of a blanket, just exempt. There's criteria for that, and I've listed it here. It's fairly extensive, but the project does qualify for all of these respective criteria of an infill exemption. I do want to mention the very last bullet point with the recycled water. The city has a zero water footprint policy, which means that as new users come online that need potable water from our distribution system, they need to offset that demand by some other conservation measure. And one of the best ways of doing that is to extend the use of recycled water. And so the applicant is going to be extending a recycled water line from Paoli Loop 400 feet to their site. And that enables them to be able to use recycled water in their production. But it also now provides a new source of recycled water for all the neighbors who could perhaps use that as well. And so it's great that we have these projects because not only does it help diminish their demand for water, but for others as well. And that's just good for everybody. Assuming the Planning Commission approves the conditional use permit, there are next steps. A lot of these are described in the conditions of approval in the resolution to the project. But some of the key ones here are entering into an operational agreement. That's where we kind of really refine some of those concepts that we have in the application into a specific agreement to kind of nail it any gray areas. The applicant would also need to submit proof that they've obtained their licenses from the state. And the council was concerned with regard to the third bullet point that what happens if the city approves a project and the applicant doesn't move forward with it. And so there is a requirement that they begin operation of at least some of their 4 aspects of their business within 8 months. And so they have to be done within a year, 4 months before the license is expired. And then there's an annual renewal. So the city has a check-in every year, just to make sure that the assumptions are the same, things are working well, there aren't anything that was an unintended consequence that we need to talk about. And that's a very common aspect of cannabis licenses throughout California. So with that, just wanted to remind you the recommendation from staff is to recommend approval of the conditional use permit for the Fume project. And glad to answer any questions. I see that our applicant has also signed in case you have any questions for that person as well.
Does the applicant have a presentation or no?
Chairman Goff, I don't have a presentation, but I'd be happy to talk for just a couple minutes if you don't mind, just kind of introducing myself and the project.
Sure, please.
Great. Good evening, Chair and Planning Commission members. My name is Eric Sklar. I'm the CEO and founder of Fume Napa Valley. We're an integrated cannabis company with all of our operations until we can open this one up in Lake County. We cultivate outdoors up there. We have distribution. We produce products, finished products, and we distribute them to retailers around the state. In addition, we've run retail delivery service as well out of Clear Lake, and we had another location that we sold not too long ago in Katati. Our partner on the delivery side is the most interesting probably for the City of American Canyon because most of our operations nobody will ever see. They're self-contained, odor control, temperature control, humidity control in a warehouse that looks like a warehouse. That's currently holds tires, and it will soon hold cannabis, and nobody will know the difference between the two. But our delivery business produces a lot of revenue, which is great, creates good jobs, and it delivers our cannabis under the EASE banner. The company EAZ, you've probably seen their big blue billboards around the Bay Area. That delivers to people's homes and offices and hotels. It's a great service and has been really very popular. I'm a longtime Napa resident. I've been growing grapes here for 42 years. Started a winery called Alpha Omega on Highway 29 in 2005 and sold that in 2013. I was a city council member and a planning commissioner in St. Helena. I'm currently a statewide public office holder on a commission, the Fish and Game Commission, and really dedicated to community. So I just want to assure you that we are great community members. If you talk to the mayor or the council members or the planning director of Clear Lake, where we operate our operations, I think they will tell you in glowing terms that we've been a great partner for the city there. And the things that people care about, odor, safety, water, are very high on our list. I know there was one single letter, not opposing our project, but just raising concerns from Peter Nissen of Nissen Vineyard Management. Their office is the building right at the corner at the entry to the to Klamath Court on the right. It's been there for a long time, I think maybe 25 years, something like that, maybe more. He's a longtime friend, and we had a great conversation not too long ago. We've served on boards together before. His concerns were criminal activity, odor, and traffic. So I'd just like to address each of those very briefly. Criminal activity, he's concerned because he's had a lot of criminal activity. He's had trucks stolen and equipment stolen from his yard. He's installed lots of cameras and security. I think this may end up being the safest block in American Canyon when we move in and are running, because we'll have 24-hour security, 24-hour guard, extensive cameras as required by the state, and discussed at length with Chief Ortez to make sure that we do it right. And we've agreed with the chief also to put in, I believe, Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, it's called an LPL camera out on the main road, the main feeder road into the Klamath Court that captures license plates in cars and even faces the people in the cars as they're driving by. So the very fact that we're in a cul-de-sac is a good thing from a safety perspective, from our perspective, and the fact that we'll have it totally lit up with cameras and security, our area will be totally fenced, and we just feel that we have the level of security that will resolve any concern anybody has there. As I said, it'll probably be the safest street in American Canyon, at least for now. Odor. This is, a lot of people are concerned about odor with cannabis, but that usually concerns outdoor cultivation, not indoor, because it's not contained. Outdoor cultivation is in an indoor building. The state and our use permit will require proper air handling systems. It doesn't ventilate that odor outside. It scrubs any air before it releases it. There's actually a little bit of negative pressure in the growing rooms, not just for odor, because we want to keep pathogens controlled well. And so odor has not been a problem for most indoor growers if they've done it according to the state and local requirements. And then finally, traffic. It's a tire company that sends out repeated trucks all day long to tire stores around Napa, Vallejo, and Fairfield, and receives lots of deliveries of tires all week long. We had a traffic report done that showed that our traffic impact is virtually negligible. And so I understand Peter's concerns. I explained them to him. He said he just wanted to get them on the record, which I totally understand. With that, I want to also say that on the phone and the attendees tonight are Alyssa Hambrick, the COO of our company, who runs our operations and will be building this out. She's available for any questions and comments. And George Cloud, who's a water specialist, because water is very important to the city of American Canyon, as is to all Californians. As Fish and Game Commissioner, President of the Commission, we think about water all the time, particularly enough water for our wildlife in the waterways. And we're very excited because I was in St. Helena when I did a tertiary council member when tertiary water started to become a thing. And I think we've all waited impatiently for the actual pipes to get to users. You can have the tertiary water, but if it doesn't get delivered to their door, it's not much good. And so while it's a pretty, it won't be cheap for us to run that one water line, the 400, yards, I'm a believer in it. And so we're looking forward to being able to do that. And we'll certainly look to see if any of our neighbors would like to take that water. They'd have to come to the main that's a direct line from point to point to our place. But if they want to tee off of that, we'd be all over that. So again, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but we appreciate your time and appreciate your service.
All right, thank you. We're going to move to commission questions for either the city or for the applicant. We're just going to start with Commissioner Altman. Would you like to, any questions?
I'm going to hold off for now. I'm sure I'll have some questions, but I would love to hear public comment first and kind of go from there. So thank you, Chair.
All right, Commissioner Miller.
Just curious, I was just reading in the report, I saw a bullet here stating that prior to occupancy, you would need to provide a plan to hire residents of American Canyon. Can you elaborate on that? I mean, it's very interesting. It's great. We want to encourage kind of a work-life kind of balance, but just thinking of what kind of what's the process that you would entail in that step?
Right. So it's fundamentally accepting applications and hiring the most qualified people, but among equally qualified people, giving preference to people from American Canyon. We can't discriminate, and we wouldn't dream of that. But allowing a preference for people of equal qualifications and character to choose the people who are local. It goes very closely with our effort to always have a green footprint, which means the shortest drive times for workers, because it's good for the environment. And it's good, as we know, for their families and their children, particularly for parents. Those hours they're spending commuting are hours not with their kids or not with their partner, or their case. If you saw a second ago, my dog came into the room, my puppy. you want to be able to be home as much as you can, right? And so, yeah, that's our process. It has to be fair and not discriminate in any way with employment laws. But there's nothing wrong with saying that we're going to give preference to people who have a shorter drive. And just for the record, in Lake County, 100% of our employees are from Lake County, and in general, the folks who work on the east side of the county for our business are from the east side of the county, and people who work on the west side of the county are from the west side of the county.
Anything else, Commissioner Miller?
No, that's
Okay. Commissioner Navarro, anything?
Hopefully not too long. One for Chief Ortiz and one for Brent. I'm wondering, Chief, what you think about the security plan, and if you concur with Eric's estimation that it'll be even more secure, that area, than it was before. And then, and Brett, I see on the trip generation study that this would incur 39 more trips or 40 more trips, but I just wondered if you concur with that, in that it really would be not that greater impact of traffic around that area.
I'll go first, Brett. Good evening, Chair and Commissioners, Chief Ortiz. I've reviewed the application and security plan. I've had a couple of emails and a phone conversation with Mr. Sklar. It's not exactly what we wanted at this point, but it's in a good place. It's very comprehensive, a lot of detail covered. And that's where, as Mr. Cooper mentioned, we get into, kind of the refinement of the operational agreement to kind of fine tune it a little bit more. And Mr. Sklar has been open to that. Like I said, we've had some phone discussions already. As far as his conclusion or his comments that it would be the safest street in American Canyon, how do you really quantify that, or how do you truly get it? We do know, and we've seen in 2020 some pretty violent robberies of cannabis business, but those were primarily open retail type of businesses, not something like this application. But because of those concerns, for those safety concerns, is why we're having this kind of emails and phone calls back and forth to kind of fine tune it, and that's where that operational agreement would come in to kind of work out those last second bugs. But it is pretty comprehensive, and a lot of work went into it so far, from what I can tell.
If I may for a second, yeah, I of course meant that a little bit tongue in cheek. You have a very safe community, and we are very conscious of protecting our employees, because that's really who's at risk more than anybody. And we look forward to working with Chief Ortiz on fine tuning it. Each city and each chief has different ideas of what works best for them, whether it's a direct feed to their dispatchers, whether they want to be looking at additional cameras. There's all kinds of things you can do, but it has to be a kind of an agreement and a partnership between the specific city, the specific police department, and the operator.
Okay. And the traffic study, it was prepared by a registered traffic engineer, and it was peer reviewed by our Public Works Department, and they agreed that the assumptions were accurate. With regard to the number of additional trips, about 39, I think, was the number on an average day.
Yes.
If you think you spread it out over a 24-hour day, then it's a little more than one trip per hour. But obviously, trips may be clustered in the morning and night. But in the grand scheme of things, it's negligible and wouldn't be noticeable by the average person.
And do you know how many employees are at the tires operation right now? Is it a greater amount of employees being hired in this new proposed operation?
Yeah, we have about twice as many employees, and I would say that as Planning Director Cooper said, it's spread out. It's not spread over 24, but it's actually spread out from about 6 o'clock in the morning to 11 at night. So it's actually distributed over quite a few hours, because the delivery people work in shifts, from 10, and it's not rush hour for the delivery folks, which is the biggest group of drivers coming in and out. They get in kind of like a 9:30, 10 to get ready for their delivery shift, and there's a changeover around 3 or 4. So we avoid the best part of rush hour with most of those trips.
Okay, that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Navarro. Moving on to Commissioner Wong. Any questions at this time?
Yes, I do have a few questions. Brent, I had a couple questions for the city first, and then I had a few for Mr. Sklar after. I guess since this is our first cannabis business, which is very exciting, and this one involves manufacturing as well, and I'm guessing cannabis oil is sort of a new compound in our city in terms of like fire safety. Is there anything different? I mean, what did our fire chief say about like special training, special equipment, or just anything different than normal?
Yeah, that's a great question. when we were talking about the ordinance, there was a discussion about volatile or non-volatile solvents. I think there isn't anything intrinsically unique about cannabis as a product versus other industrial processes and manufacturing that occurs in an industrial park. And so there are building codes that address these volatile solvents, whether it's cannabis or any other kind of volatile solvent for other purposes. And so we did involve our building official and our fire folks in that discussion. So at such time as they want to have their tenant improvements, the applicable building and fire codes would be applied to their construction so that it could be accommodated in a safe manner.
Yeah, may I just add, Commissioner Wong, that it's currently a tire warehouse with, thousands and thousands of tires. When those things catch on fire, it is really ugly. It can burn for months. So we're an improvement over that. And mostly we're using water. And I'll just tell you, we want to have volatile allowed because that's one of the license types and the state allows that. So far, we don't use volatile solvents. We use all water-based and CO2-based extraction, which is non-flammable at all. And at this point, we intend to just do that. But if either way, we're going to prepare the space of the manufacturing, the small part of the building, for protection against any kind of additional protection that solvents require.
Excellent. Thank you both. And Brent, I just had one last question for you. And I know there was one public comment and they were concerned about odor, and Mr. Sklar did address that. But say there was a complaint by a neighbor or by someone, how would they go about, I guess, submitting that complaint to the city, and how does the city, what's that process? Can you describe that?
Sure. The code enforcement process would be the way in which they'd submit their complaint. We have an online complaint form on our website, and they could also submit a hard copy too if that was necessary. And the standard for odor is if it's detectable at the property line. And so perhaps that could be subjective. Some people might smell better than others. But we tend to use kind of a reasonable person standard for this or other kinds of complaints. With respect to odors, back again, the same standard that applies to other industrial uses was one that applies to the cannabis uses. And that was feedback that we had from the Napa Valley Cannabis Association. They were a partner and involved in crafting the ordinance. And we noted that we already have odor standards in our industrial district. And so we kind of reiterated that in the cannabis ordinance, just so that we know that odor is an issue with cannabis. And so we kind of brought the two together. But it's the same standard, whether it's in any kind of industrial process or a cannabis one.
And I would add, Commissioner Wong, that the back of our building is back to the railroad tracks, and so about maybe 45-50% of the building is exposed to open space, big open space with nobody there. And the other two sides, the other two of the three sides are industrial buildings that are spaced pretty well. And then there's the street, a big street exposure. So we don't have a lot in the way of neighbors. And the aromas that come from cannabis, interestingly, I hope this is interesting to you, are terpenes, which are the same exact compounds that give wine its aroma. And if you leave a bottle of wine out for about 6 or 7 hours, the aroma's gone, it just disappears. That's because terpenes are very volatile. In oxygen and light, they break down very quickly. So while the aroma can be very strong close up while the plants are growing, the minute it gets out into more open air and sunlight, they break down very quickly.
Okay. So, Wilfred, thank you. And that was my 2 questions for the city. And Mr. Sklar, I did have a few questions about your business. What was most interesting to me, and I'll try and rephrase it back to you to see if I understood it correctly. When I read the last attachment, it talked about the delivery drivers, about how they don't come back and forth to the warehouse. They load up once at the beginning of the day, and then they're out all day, and they kind of get orders sent to them based on where they're located. So one of my questions, okay, thank you. So one of my questions is how big of a route does a typical driver have, and where are they located while they're waiting for orders to come into them? Because I would presume they're not constantly driving for the duration of their route. They must have like gaps in between.
Yeah, so it's called dynamic delivery. The drivers are much like Uber drivers, in that a customer places an order, the system figures out what driver is closest to the customer, sends the order to that driver. The driver stops a block or two away because they don't want to do it right in front of the house in case it's a setup for a robbery. They'll pack the bag somewhere else so nobody knows where they're doing it. They just stop by the side of the street, go to their trunk where the trunk is locked. The case of cannabis is locked into the trunk. They'll fill a delivery bag. It's a childproof delivery bag, and they'll go the last couple blocks to the person's house and deliver it. Generally, in a big city, a driver will have a 20 square block area. They'll be in that area, and they'll be delivering a delivery every 20 minutes all day long. There really are no gaps. Right now, we deliver to American Canyon from Clear Lake. So that driver drives an hour and a half or an hour and a little more to get to American Canyon and then stays there throughout the day, maybe makes a trip to deliver to in South Napa. But there's a delivery area that's pretty contained, and they're delivering all day. They're not sitting around at all. Our drivers deliver about, we want them to be busy the whole time, and they deliver about 18 deliveries a shift. So they're not sitting around. They are allowed, and they're not allowed to leave the car unmanned or unwomaned for very long. They can do it for bathroom breaks and for quick meal breaks.
Thank you. I'm not familiar with the model, so that clarifies that they're not just going to be, say, like parked up on the corner waiting for an order. It sounds like they're just constantly busy. That's part of your staffing model. Okay, great.
Thank you for reading our report so carefully. We put a lot of time into it, and you obviously read the details.
I did. I was having questions, and as I would read along, I go, oh, well, there's the answer to my question. So it was very well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was wondering, I did read that the drivers may use their own vehicle or they may use company cars. If they're using company cars, are your cars branded or are they blank?
Either way, they're blank. They're unmarked. The employees don't wear uniforms. They don't wear any hats that denote them as anything other than a civilian in a car. They do have an ID tag that you can only see when they're right up next to you. And the way it works, when they come to your home, they're in a plain unmarked, usually a very fuel efficient car, Hondas mainly, and they come up to your door. You're warned that they're arriving by a text. They arrive. They ring the doorbell. Right now during COVID, they stand back. In non-COVID times, they would actually, your order and your driver's license, the customers comes up on their phone, so they compare it to your face. And then normal times, you would sign on your name on their phone. We're not doing that in this, COVID time because it's just not safe. And they hand you your bag and they're on their way.
Okay,
Most
great.
transactions, by the way, are credit card.
Okay. I was also wondering, since you have experience doing this with the delivery routes and whatnot, now that you're opening up here in American Canyon, and we may see, I don't know if we'll see more of your drivers in American Canyon, or maybe there's already sufficient saturation since you already cover the area. But I was curious if you can share, what typical incidents may happen on the delivery route that may be of interest from a crime and safety perspective. Are there typical things that happen?
Yeah, the biggest problem is accidents, automobile accidents. These guys and gals are spending all day in the car every day. So just by the miles traveled in their job, they have car accidents. It's the single biggest headache in the delivery business. It's the single biggest scary thing because sometimes in rainy weather, somebody could get hurt. We have had no incidents, I believe, and Alyssa can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't believe we've had a single incident of a driver and crime problems in our business in the now 2.5 years we've been doing it. Ease in general in California, which has now done millions and millions of deliveries in California, the incidence of crime is a decimal point. It's 0.001 or something like that, because the cars are unmarked, and because they're coming to your home and you've given them your driver's license and an address. you'd have to be a really stupid criminal because you're inviting somebody to come rob them at your front door. And we'd have a full record of it.
Okay, that sounds great. I just have one last question. I noticed the delivery hours you stated they're from 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. Are those typical delivery hours for cannabis delivery services?
Great question. It really varies. Some places allow you to deliver till midnight, some 1 in the morning, some only 8 at night. There's the whole range. Every city and every county has different ones. Technically, it's really not up to the city because it's up to you in American Canyon because we're based there and it's a use permit. But when we're delivering from Clear Lake into American Canyon, it's really up to, it's not up to American Canyon because we're allowed to drive your streets any time of day or night. We generally stop our deliveries at 10 and we say to 11 because the drivers may finish up a last order or two if it's in the queue after we shut down the store.
Okay, so from a delivery perspective, since you're already delivering to American Canyon from your base in Clear Lake, nothing really changes from the delivery perspective when you start your other businesses here.
Yeah, no, not really. I think we'll have the same number of drivers that are stationed in American Canyon every day on the, and we have more on Saturday, Fridays and Saturdays than we do on Mondays.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have the same number of drivers at the same times with the same amount of sales, most likely. We're not allowed to advertise much. Cannabis is really limited on where we can advertise, and they just eliminated the right to advertise on billboards. Mm-hmm. So, we have to work real hard to get new customers. It's usually by word of mouth.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and when I was reading through the document, and I may have missed it, do you have to do many modifications to the current warehouse to make it suitable for your business needs?
Great question. Very little exterior. A couple of air conditioning units on the roof. It's all interior. It's a very wide open space, which is great. So we're going to be installing walls to create smaller rooms within a very big open warehouse. The office space is all fine. We're not changing that. But we're dividing what's probably 32,000 square feet of warehouse space into 9 different rooms, one for the delivery business, one for the distribution, one for the manufacturing. And then the cultivation rooms kind of have an optimal size. So we'll have 3 of them or 4 of them, then we'll have a drying room and a curing room and so on. But it's all interior.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you for answering all my questions and for your application to American Canyon.
Thank you, Commissioner Wong.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wong, it falls to me, I've got just a couple of quick follow-ups. Most of them have already been covered. I'm a little confused about the delivery still. You talk about ease.com, and is that the platform in which orders are transmitted? Are the drivers employed by you, or do the drivers fall under ease?
It's a great question, and it's, I got to say both right now. Ease is more and more buying out their partners who are doing the delivery business and doing it all themselves. From the beginning, they were a platform that acquired customers and then provided the technology to connect those customers with the licensee who actually ran the delivery business. They'll be our partner in this initially, and we may very well want to come back to the city. We may even do it before we open. I didn't want to bring this up because this is just happening the last couple of weeks where Ease is buying these dispensaries up, ours up. We may partner with them where they actually take over that one business entirely and run it entirely as a subtenant of ours. But if we do that, they're going to have to apply through the cannabis business license process. The use permit will still work because it covers everything. And we'll see what Ease wants to do over the coming months. It's a good question. The answer is both.
Yeah. It really, my concern is, okay, people are out delivering out through our community and God forbid something happens. The liability for that, does that fall on you? Does that fall on Ease?
It falls on the licensee and the employer. So initially us, and then possibly transferring that to Ease, who's a much bigger company. But we are, we have insurance requirements both by Ease, by the state has certain requirements, both not just the cannabis regulation, but Department of Transportation, because they're commercial drivers.
Okay. And where's Ease located out of? Where's their main office?
In San Francisco.
Okay. Thank you. The other thing I was reading, it was about, as you mentioned, we got a letter from Mr. Nissan, and I think one of his concerns was about congestion in that little cul-de-sac and parking. And I was reading through your report, and it seems like Do you have on-site parking for all your employees?
We do. We have ample parking. There's parking all the way down one side of the building, and then two more sides of the building. There's single lane parking.
Okay. And then my other concern is I don't know what the actual regulations are about fencing, but as you mentioned, the back end of that goes the railroad spur. So I don't know if there's increased security concerns around fencing back there just because it's more hidden neighborhood and people transit through railroad tracks. Have you looked at something to boost or strengthen fencing just on the back end of that property?
Yeah, we're going to strengthen the fencing all the way around. It's going to be, really good security fencing. We'll work with the planning department, the building department on, to what extent we can or want to use barbed wire. Most places don't like it, barbed wire, because it's just, it's not, it's an eyesore, and it doesn't feel very good to be looking at barbed wire. But maybe along the railroad tracks that does make sense. So we'll work with the city on. We want the most security we can have, but we want to do it within the confines of, both the aesthetics and the community judgment on it. But we will be it'll be heavily cambered back there.
Okay. And then I just have one other final comment, because one of the conditions was educational outreach in the community. Have you guys started anything associated with that or plans associated with that for our community? I know it listed in here a lot of the nonprofits in our community, which was fantastic, but has any of that already started?
No, none of it started yet. We'll be doing that as we start the business up. But we really believe that cannabis should have been made legal and should be legal to adults. We think it has both recreational and medical properties that are really extraordinary. I've been in the wine business. I feel that in many ways cannabis is less harmful to society when it is abused than alcohol. And we also believe deeply that nobody under 21 should be using it recreationally, and nobody under 18 should be using it medically unless it's prescribed by a medical doctor. Because there are some instances where young children with seizures have found real relief from CBD products. So we, because we believe in it and because it's good for our business to be a good citizen, obviously, we will work with the schools. We're happy to come and provide teachers, and educators who can educate on substance abuse and why you need to wait. In particular with cannabis, we know that young minds that are developing, particularly 11 to 21, should not be using this, that it can affect brain development, as can alcohol, as can any other number of substances. So we will be a partner with the city, with the schools, to do all that. But the short answer to your question is no, we haven't started yet because we're not actually operating there. We don't have anybody working there yet.
Do you have any similar conditions in your enterprise that you have in Lake County, or any examples of things you've done there?
No, they don't require it at all, but we contribute to the same kind of organizations and make ourselves available to those organizations, and we have done that occasionally.
Okay, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
That's all the questions I have, so I believe we're going to move on to opening public comment. Nicole, you need to read something for that?
No, I don't need to read anything, but I will state that if you are online and wish to make public comment, this is the time to raise your hand.
And I know we received the one letter, which is in the meeting minutes. Is there anybody that you see signaling for public comment at this time?
Nothing, and nobody's raising their hand. So I have 4 people who have joined as attendees, but again, if you would like to make a public comment, this is the time to raise your hand. Nobody's raising their hand, Chair.
Okay. Then in that case, we're going to go ahead and close public comment. We're going to move on to commissioner comments. I would go back to you, Mr. Altman, but we're going to save you for the end. So we're going to start with Commissioner Wong.
Thank you, Chair Koff. I don't have any additional questions at this time from what I already asked. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Navarro?
I wonder, I have a question for Brent and then the city attorney. The tire business, do you know, is it shutting down anyway? Are they relocating? What's going on with that business that's in American Canyon? Do you know?
Commissioner Navarro, unfortunately, I don't know, but I was thinking about that issue as we were talking tonight. I'll give them a call tomorrow and kind of find out what their plans are, if they need any assistance with the new location in American Canyon, or kind of just understand what their plans are.
Yeah, I can pipe in on that a little bit. They're considering their options, I think is the best way to put it. They've identified some other buildings, but they didn't want to do anything until they're downsizing a bit. They don't need as much space. The parents are retiring. The kids who are running the business have reevaluated what they need. So I think they want to find a new place in American Canyon, but they don't want to do any of it until, we're kind of further along, even through the building permit process, because they want to make sure, because our rent doesn't start till we move in.
Well, since what about their employees? They're planning on staying in business. Okay. All right. And then the city attorney, I'm just wondering, we got a note from Mr. Ross, and it kind of made me think of an idea of, is there any precedence, or would it be out of line to request some sort of virtual tour of their current operation, and then maybe some kind of virtual look or a better schematic of the inside of the building to see how it really will look? Do you have any internal design plans yet, Mr. Sklar, also?
I believe that our floor plan was a part of the application, a detailed floor plan that shows all the rooms and all the buildings. We don't have any elevations, I don't believe, because it's all internal. So if you're looking at internal elevation, it's a wall with a door or window. We'd be happy to arrange a tour to our operations up in Lake County. Up there, it's a different kind of setup. It's kind of small, low industrial buildings where they all have their own full access. That you don't access through each other. We're not doing indoor cultivation there. We are doing outdoor cultivation, which this time of year is very boring because there's no plants in the ground. But we'd be happy to take you up there next summer when the plants are 7-8 feet tall. It's an extraordinary thing to see. And it's actually both extraordinary how big the plants are and how much they smell when you're next to them, and how little impact they have once you're 200 feet away.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So the short answer, Commissioner, would be, yes, that is something that the Commission could ask for. The issuance of a CUP is a quasi-judicial activity. It's a discretionary permit, and it's based on the evidence that's been presented. But certainly, you can request additional details or have a site visit. That would be something that would be within the realm of a possibility.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Millard?
Just one question in regards to kind of just not having like a storefront. Can you just try to envision how would it look like? I know that the windows are dark or painted or whatever they are currently, but like, is the door locked during the business hours, or is there kind of like a code, or just safety wise, and how does it look like when you're inside? Is there
Great question.
Desks?
Yeah, great question. All the we have loading docks on the front of the building. We're unlikely to use those. We're likely to use the doors that are around the back once you enter the fenced-in area. Mm-hmm. So the left are loading dock doors that will be alarmed and locked and rarely opened. The front, where the office is, to the right on the building, will have tinted windows so you can't see in. There's going to be no signage on the building. There will be the address number, and there might be just the smallest kind of little nameplate on the door so people know before they ring the doorbell that they're actually where they're supposed to be. And there will be a doorbell with a camera and a buzzer. And then additionally, for employees and staff, there'll be biometric entry. You'll have to put your thumbprint down or a card. So either biometric or a pass card. Everybody these days, we really like biometric. And not only that, we're going to have biometric internally because only cleared employees can go into the growing rooms. That's because we don't want contamination. We don't want a delivery person walking into a grow room to see what the plants look like and bringing in dirt from the street on their shoes and contaminating the rooms.
Thank you.
To be honest, we'd rather nobody know we were a cannabis business. I believe in the public process, and I know that use permits have to be public. And so people now know we're doing this there, but if our preference would be that nobody knew this was a cannabis business, it's just better for security.
I agree too. That's what I'm wondering how it would look like if people were driving by. I mean, we have a lot of residents that come visit and pass through and, take a wrong turn and stumble upon, your business or whatnot. So just don't want it to be inviting, right?
Yeah.
So
They're going to have no idea with if they accidentally turn on the famous court, they're going to see a bunch of industrial buildings, but they're not going to know what any of them really are.
thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Anything else, Commissioner Miller?
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Altman?
Thank you, Chair Goff. I've got just a couple, and it's really going to be following up on some of the previous questions. The one piece that I've got concerns with is the delivery aspect, and it's goes to my fear, and this comes from a parent of a middle schooler and an elementary schooler, and I completely agree with Mr. Sklar's comments regarding the inappropriateness of cannabis for kids. And so my question really is, what measures are in place in the delivery process to make sure that product, and this is where, and those who know me at all know, I don't really have much objection to, the smoke, but it's the edibles that really concern me in terms of kids. I saw recently, I've got to mention, I've got a business acquaintance for a number of years who was in the business, in the cannabis business. And I think it's probably because of him. On my LinkedIn feed, I sometimes get information regarding cannabis businesses. And within the last, 2-3 weeks, somebody's doing a cherry cola edible gummy bear. And in my mind, you can tell me that's targeted not at kids, and I'm going to tell you nonsense. I mean, that's targeted for kids.
I fully agree, for the record, but go ahead.
And so, that's where my concerns are. It's how do we make sure that kids aren't getting this stuff? I laugh. I'm old enough. I go back, and it was hash brownies, and there was a reason it was hash brownies and not hash bran muffins, and it's still that way, right? I mean, and so that's where my concerns and my fears regarding cannabis are. It's really, I am so focused on kids, and it's, I'm a parent. That's my focus.
First of all, I hope you don't mind if I steal that line, why it's not bran muffins. I think that's terrific. I would use that in conversations I have.
Just give credit, please.
I will. Secondly, we share a lot. We share the same name, spelled the right way. I'm also was a hockey player until I was done with college, and a hockey fan, so I have a picture over your shoulder. And I have 2 children. Well, I take it back. I have 2 2 offspring who are adults now. They're 21 and 23, and so I've gone through those teenage years with 2 teenage girls in St. Helena, where, like every other city and location in the country, has drug problems with youth. I agree 100%. They should never make edibles in the form of something that's attractive to children. Gummy bears, gummy worms, things like that should not be made at all. The packaging should not be made to be attractive to children, and there is state law on that. I don't think it's being enforced as tightly as they should, partly because those agencies are just getting their footing, and because they all got cut short on improvements and changes they needed in the last year under COVID, because the state government's just scrambling to do the emergency stuff. I 100% agree. What we can control is whether they can get it from us or not. I don't mean we don't have responsibility once it's in the home, but let me talk about our responsibility first, which is we only carry licensed products that are licensed producers by the state, that are inspected, and whose products are subject to punitive damages if they violate any of the packaging requirements. So in theory, all of our products are meeting that must not be attractive to kids criteria. There's still food, Some of them are still sweet. Some of them are chocolates. Kids aren't going to eat a flower of cannabis. They're unlikely, a young kid, they're unlikely to pick up a joint and light it or roll a joint. It's the edibles. Right. And so all I can say is that, we can't do much about that end part of it other than not carry licensed products that are complying with the state law to protect kids. But what we do is make sure kids can't order it from us. Teenagers can't order it from us. So when you sign up at ease.com, you have to provide a valid credit card and a valid driver's license with your picture on it. And then when you place the order, the driver will not hand it to somebody who's not on their phone on the picture on that driver's license. I don't recall an instance where somebody's found a way around that in any of our depots. I think there was one time a mom said it happened. It turns out the kid didn't get it from us. He said he did, but he didn't. I don't recall any instance in which in any of our depots, and again, I have somebody on the phone, Alyssa, our ACO, can tell me if I'm wrong, where a kid found a workaround. Now, if a parent orders it and gives it to their kid or leaves it sitting around, that's problematic. And there's two different groups of kids. There's teenagers who we don't want using it because they shouldn't use it. And then there's little kids who, it can really, be a terrifying experience for them. Parents need to play a role in this, just like they do with their wine in their wine cellar or the liquor in their liquor cabinet. We can't do it alone. It takes from us through to the parent safeguarding that and their kids. I do want to say one thing, that nobody's ever died from an overdose of marijuana, from THC. Some people have had very bad experiences and gone to hospitals because they feel like crap, pardon my language. But, because especially with edibles, because it's hard to control how much you're getting. The edibles companies are getting better and better at making sure that there's the right amount of THC in there and there's a low amount per serving so that doesn't happen. And as importantly, in the early days, they weren't spreading the THC out evenly through a batch. So you might make a tray of gummies and all the THC may end up at one end because they didn't have the technology to figure out how to disperse it evenly. And so somebody might get a gummy that doesn't do anything, another one might put them on the floor. That's improved dramatically in the last 6 years since legalization has happened in Colorado. I hope that answers your question. There's no magic bullet. We all have to work on this from cradle to grave.
Well, so it does to a certain extent, and I really appreciate where you're coming from. A couple of kind of follow-ons, though. You mentioned you're not aware of any circumstances where a kid has ordered, but I'll ask sort of the counter to that. Have there been cases that you're aware of where drivers have gone to make a delivery and the person ordering doesn't match, and what happens at that point? Do they turn around and say, we're canceling the order? And how often does that happen? Is that a nominal occurrence? Has it ever happened? Or does the driver want to make the delivery regardless? And I guess that ties into how are the drivers compensated? Are they compensated per delivery, or are they compensated in a per hour, or what kind of basis?
Per hour. So they get no bonus for making a delivery they shouldn't make, and they don't generate the order, right? The order gets generated through the technology system. So it gets ordered. They fill the order. We have refused to hand over product. Sometimes it's to the person's older spouse. It has to be the person on the driver's license. Period. Okay. And our drivers are trained on that. And if they violate that, they can and will be fired. So I know of some instances where drivers have definitely not handed over the product, but I don't know of anyone where they handed over the product and consequently that was discovered. Now, if they handed it over to a kid, and the parent didn't discover it, might be a problem. But our drivers, know that will get them fired. They're criminally liable too, by the way, because they're providing illegal drugs to a minor, and our company is at enormous risk. So we take great care in picking our drivers and training our drivers not to do that.
So is there anything, I'll sort of kick this over to Chief Ortiz's bailiwick to a certain extent, but I know with the push for cameras, wearable cameras for police departments, is there anything like that where your drivers are wearing something so that it can be validated that in fact they have checked and and it can be fully vetted and verified that they have in fact delivered to the person who has placed the order, or is it still a bit of a trust system? And a trust system vetted by your efforts to make sure that you have the right drivers and you have quality people, in those roles.
Yeah, we have cameras in the cars for security of the cars and the drivers. They're not wearing a body cam, and I don't know of any delivery folks who do. I think there's partly a concern about privacy for the buyer.
I get that.
A lot of our customers most of our customers would not be real happy with that, or some of them wouldn't be. But it is certainly a possibility, and we go through very, very deep background checks on our drivers. Both from a criminal standpoint, but a driving standpoint. The most likely way our driver is going to harm somebody is with the lethal weapon of a car, right? They're not, even if they give over a bag of marijuana that they shouldn't to somebody, it's not likely to kill somebody, but their car could. And so, we have a zero tolerance policy on accidents too, unless it's entirely not your fault. If a deer jumps up in front of you and you're traveling the speed limit and the speed that's appropriate for that road under those conditions. But if you're on your cell phone and driving, and we know if you are, you're fired if you're getting in an accident.
Got it. Okay. Trying to think if I've got anything else along those lines. I really appreciate the answers that you're providing and the candor around it, because this really is the one issue regarding cannabis that I wish, when the state would have passed the law, they would have created an ability for communities to address edibles simply because of the attractiveness to kids in an independent fashion. I have really no major concerns with any other part of the business. I get the growing, I get the cultivation, I get the drying rooms. I understand how all of that works. It's just the packaging, and we've seen, and since I am by a wide margin the longest standing member of the Planning Commission presently, I was involved when the first approaches were started, and I forget what year that was, although Brent probably recalls. But I was on the commission then, and we received information then, and I just remember what the packaging on edibles, it was renamed candy bars. You mentioned the chocolates, the one that I do remember, I don't remember all of them, but one was a Kit Kat takeoff, Kef Kat. And it was like, you gotta be kidding me. This is criminal. This is clearly targeted at kids. And so when people talk about the retail storefront stuff, which we're not permitting, which I support, my concern there was always, I'm old enough, as are you. When I was a kid, underage, if I wanted alcohol, I stood by the 7-Eleven. I found a nice-looking person. I asked, hey, can you pick up a 6-pack and either keep the change or, give me 5? And most people were more than happy to do that. And the fact that I'm of an age where I'm a native New Yorker, the drinking age was only 18, so I was doing that when I was 16 years old.
Right.
And so, yes, there's a security guard at a dispensary, but you know what? Kids are going to do the same thing. They're going to find somebody, and they'll move around the corner from where the security guard is, and they'll conduct their own little transactions. So it's the whole kids piece that bothers me.
Yeah, you're not going to get any argument from me on the edibles and kids. You're just not. I agree wholeheartedly.
Great. Well, thank you. Again, thank you. And I guess that does it for me for questions. So on to you, Chair Goff.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner Altman. My big thing here, when we started this opportunity and cannabis became legal in the state, we looked at it and we defined what we wanted possibly in our community. and allowing all that. And really the presentation that you've put for us here, their business plan, meets all of those expectations. So now we're just getting back to the comfortableness of having a business like this in our city. We've put everything in place. You've met all those. You're going down to the criteria. I think the location that you've selected is probably one of the better locations in our city. It's isolated enough. There's not things around it. I really like the fact that you yourself are from the valley, and we're not dealing with somebody coming outside the valley, coming into our city and trying to start out one of these. It's always nice when it's a neighbor. So I like that. I also like your connection to Fish and Game. I have to say, that aspect of your professionalism puts a good feel behind this type of business, knowing that you have a passion for that aspect of nature that helps us here. So I don't really have any comments besides that. I appreciate what you've done here, what you've submitted to us, and your ability to be here and answer all of our questions for you. So I appreciate that, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair Goff.
With that, we are going to move on to actions by the commission.
Don't you act on the use permit?
Yes. So
I will make a motion that we adopt a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of American Canyon, California, approving a conditional use permit for indoor commercial cannabis cultivation, manufacturing, distribution, and non-storefront retail at an existing 23,617 square foot industrial building at 180 Klamath Court in the City of American Canyon, file PL 20-0018.
I'll
Thank you.
second that.
And we have a second.
Okay, Commissioner Altman,
Aye.
Commissioner Malari,
Aye.
Commissioner Wong,
Aye.
Vice Chair Navarro,
Aye.
Chair Goff.
Aye.
Hey, Chair Goff, if I may, I know it's uncommon to speak afterwards, but I just want to thank the city, the staff, the council, the community that's worked on all this for hard. It's a big milestone tonight in getting the first use permit passed, and it's been a lot of people. Your planning director has spent a lot of hours on this, as has his colleagues, as has the chief, as has the city manager, as has the city attorney. And so, as a member of the community and a business, I want to thank everybody who's worked so hard to bring us to today.
All right, thank you very much.
Good night.
With that, 4.3 was the comment we already noted. We're moving on to business. 5.1, elect planning commission chair and vice chair.
Yes, I'm sure this is an annual event everyone looks forward to.
I think we did it last year. I'm pretty sure it carried over. We went into COVID and then things just stopped.
I think we did have an election, though.
Anyway,
You might not have been present.
I was going to say, I don't remember it. I was gone for one of the meetings, so.
They say be there or be nominated.
So we're taking nominations. Is that the goal here? Yep.
Mm-hmm.
What I would suggest is actually we take some conversation and we see if there's anybody who is actually interested in stepping in to the chairman role. Having done it long enough myself, I don't know if you're totally tired of it yet, Chair Goff, but I'm a firm believer that when possible, it should be rotated amongst people. If you're willing to step aside, then I think it would be great if somebody else stepped up and had an interest.
I share Commissioner Altman's thoughts on that. I always like when it's really shared leadership and everybody takes a position at the chair and it goes around the group. I think it's a good experience for everybody in there. Having said that, I have no problem continuing or seconding as the vice chair. I'm very comfortable and it doesn't bother me. I know some people have some anxiety around that. But I encourage somebody else to take up, grab the gavel, and have at it.
I don't think I'm ready to be chair, but I would be interested in maybe vice chair.
That's good to know.
Okay. Well, and I will say that I'm happy to step aside and be a regular member, or or continue as vice chair. So I'm open either way as well. I guess in some ways the vice chair is kind of a preparation for chair. So I'm happy also to serve as chair at your whims.
I was going to make a recommendation that Tyrone steps up, and then I would want to recommend myself to do the vice chair.
I was also going to suggest maybe we could do it in terms of who hasn't served before as chair or vice chair, because I'm the newest person on the planning commission, I believe. So,
or unless Eric wants to come back and do it.
Well, I could sleepwalk through it if you want, but I'm looking at myself at this point as the emergency fail-safe. If nobody can do it, or if we have a meeting where the chair and vice chair are both going to be absent, and we need somebody to run a meeting, I did it. I forget it. It was like 6 or 7 years, so I'm comfortable that I can do it. But I'd rather not.
So,
How do you do this?
so for all the other commissioners who've been on the commission longer than I, have you all had a turn at chair or vice chair?
No.
Eric stepped down, and I believe
Just Eric stepped down.
And Andrew stepped in.
Bernie, yeah.
So,
And then Tyrone stepped up to be.
I guess, so Tyrone and Crystal, you are the two more senior than I who have not served as. Yeah, so I think if it makes sense, I think, Crystal, to your point, if Tyrone, if you're interested in chair, Crystal,
Okay.
if we're interested in vice chair, because then we're sort of rotating so that everybody has an opportunity.
Sure.
And that I'm very happy with that. If Chair Goff and I think Eric, you're already okay with it.
I'm fine with it. I think that makes some sense, and it looks like Chair Goff is doing a dance of some sort. So
we need a nomination on this, correct?
sure, I will nominate Vice Chair Tyrone Navarro to serve as the chair of the Planning Commission for the 2021 year. And I will also...
Let's deal with one at a time, all right?
Okay.
So, take care of your first nomination. Do we have a second on that? Or do we?
I'll second that.
Okay. First and a second.
Okay. Commissioner Altman,
Aye.
Commissioner Mallory,
Aye.
Commissioner Wong,
Aye.
Vice Chair Navarro.
I have to vote for myself? Aye.
Chair Goff.
Aye.
Actually, you don't, Vice Chair Navarro. We're now Chair Navarro.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
That
Thank you.
takes effect officially at the end of this meeting, correct? I got to finish out.
Yes.
So nominations for vice chair.
I'll nominate Crystal Malloy for vice chair.
In a second.
I will second that.
Excellent.
Okay. Commissioner Altman,
Aye.
Commissioner Wong,
Aye.
Commissioner Mallory,
Aye.
Vice Chair Navarro,
Aye.
Chair Goff.
Aye. Thank you. Excellent. Congratulations to both of you.
Yes. And thank you, both of you. I think it's a great thing to step up. I really do. And, I think you'll find that it's a valuable experience wherever down the road. It really is a good thing.
Okay,
I
thank you.
agree.
Thank you. And I will probably lean on Chairman Golf or you, Eric, for some mentoring or guidance in the first couple sessions.
Happy to, as I'm sure Andrew is likewise. You know, I mean, this is the goal isn't to throw anybody to the wolves. It's to make the commission work, and I think we're all on board with that. So whatever help you need, I'm happy to provide, and I'm sure Andrew feels the same.
Yep, we're all here to serve, so be happy to be of service.
Okay, thank you, sir.
All right, so we're going to move on to staff item 6.1, active planning projects. Mr. Cooper.
Okay. Not sure what to call you. Chair Goff.
Tell you what I have my kids call me, my students call me, Team Golf Master.
I was just looking through the list here. This is a long list.
Yeah.
You know, the staff is really working very hard on a lot of big projects, and really appreciate Edison among them. We have a great team from different departments and such working on a lot of projects, and so I'll just kind of give you the highlights. But we've got after a year, you know, with a bang, with some great things that will eventually be coming your way. Let's see. On the first item, we are the Rotten Robbie fuel station. I guess I would pair that one also with the 7-Eleven fuel station. The City Council next Tuesday will be picking up on a conversation that began with the Planning Commission with the Circle K fuel station. And that will be to discuss issues related with approval of fuel stations in American Canyon. We had great discussion here at the Planning Commission, and as a body, you raised a lot of very good issues. How many is too many? What is a fuel station? What about the conditional use permit process? And so we'll be having a workshop next Tuesday with the City Council on those topics. So I don't know if you regularly tune into the council meeting, but this time it'll be a good one. So I think you'll like that. We are working, sorry, Commissioner Wong?
Yes, I had a question about that. So when the City Council addresses the gas station discussion, I know sometimes, you know, for our role as Planning Commission, we sort of want to be careful what public comments we make because issues may come back to us before Planning Commission. So does that prohibit us from participating in the Tuesday workshop as residents? Can you maybe give me some guidance on that?
I could, but I think David needs something to do tonight. He's eminently qualified to answer that.
Okay.
Sorry, my audio caught out there for a minute. Can you repeat the full question?
So Brent was sharing that on Tuesday, the City Council is going to have a workshop on gas stations in American Canyon because we've had a couple of long discussions about it when we had the Circle K come before us. And I know as planning commissioners, I try to be careful on what I comment about publicly in case something would appear before us on Planning Commission. So at this workshop to come before City Council, I want to understand, I guess, my ability to comment as a resident versus understanding that I'm also a commissioner and that if something were to come before me, I don't want to have created a conflict.
Right, and you are always able to provide your comment as a private citizen. You're entitled to, even on your own planning commission, you can always step back, put on your private citizen hat, so for example, in recusal situations that can happen, you can still ask questions or engage as a member of the public. In terms of engaging with the city council, absolutely, you can show up and give a public comment and interact as a private citizen. The only issue where something might arise is if there's some sort of appearance of impropriety, and and that's a heavily factual driven situation, and that's not going to arise simply of you exercising your rights as a citizen of American Canyon.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see. Number of things have been approved, and they won't be on next month's list, but I hold them over for a month just so everyone knows kind of what happened to them if it got approved towards the end of the month. The Napa Logistics Park, we have an annual review of their development agreement, and then they intend to sell a parcel to PG&E, and so part of that process, it requires the City Council to authorize that sale because they become a party to the development agreement. And so those two things happened recently. The Napa Valley Casino has requested an increase in the number of tables that is allowed there. They're limited by ordinance on the number of tables, and they've asked for an increase in the number of tables. And the city attorney is spearheading that review.
I'll give just one comment on that. We are currently engaging with the DOJ and the powers that be for the Gambling Commission and getting a formal opinion from them on that. So more to come there.
The casinos are highly regulated by the State Department of Justice, DOJ. So it's somewhat what we just talked about. There's other layers of regulatory authority as well to look at. We had an interesting small project at the Hess Winery. They proposed a brewery. So that was approved, and then they said, we have a little change we want to make, and so they're kind of working through that. So it's coming along. It's an interesting little small project. Larger projects, we have the Giovanoni Logistics Center, and that's quite a large project. It has two phases to it. So the north side of Green Island Road, and it would straddle both east and west of the future Devlin Road. On the east side, there's a proposal for two warehouses, fairly large ones, and they have a design permit application for that, along with an environmental impact report that would cover both the buildings on the east side and future development on the west side of about another 1.2 million square feet. There will be a virtual meeting in support of this project at 3 p.m. on February 2nd. There will be an environmental impact report for this project, and part of the process to kick off process is to have a scoping meeting with public on whatever might be important to them to make sure this is analyzed in the environmental impact report. And so there will be this a meeting coming up, much similar format to the Planning Commission meeting tonight for that. We have already given them first review comments on their project, and they've resubmitted it, and expect to have comments to them next week, probably towards the end of next week, but that one is moving along. Let's see, other issues. 7-Eleven service station, we gave comments to the applicant in November. We're still waiting for them to resubmit on that one. Item 13 here, Gold Valley Bed and Breakfast. This would be the first of its kind conditional use permit for lodging within a personal residence. There are only a few places in town where this opportunity is available. It's in the Lavinier neighborhood and Vintage Ranch neighborhood. And so the applicant has got everything ready to go, and then we had the lockdown on COVID. Probably not a good idea to have strangers in your house. So the applicant has agreed to wait for the restrictions to be lifted, and then we'll bring it to the Planning Commission for a public hearing. Your hand raised?
Yeah, I have a question. Did you say that, did I hear you correctly when you said this is only allowed in 2 neighborhoods in the city?
That is correct. And there's only 2 residential neighborhoods in the city where it's allowed. And the reason it's in 2 neighborhoods, Lavinier and Vintage Ranch, is because they were both approved under the same specific plan back in 1999. So back in 1999, I think the authors of the specific plan thought it'd be, we're part of Napa Valley, people come and visit, have a B&B. It was long before, we have Airbnb and VRBO today. And so the specific plan had a use permit process for operating the home as a bed and breakfast. And this would be the first person that's ventured into that.
Oh, thank you. I was unaware that we had such unique features.
Let's see. The Hampton Inn Hotel, we received, we gave them their first comments. We had a workshop with the City Council on the wisdom of amending the zoning to allow for a hotel, because currently the zoning doesn't permit a hotel. This is just north of Canyon Plaza, and the City Council was concerned with oversaturation of hotels because we have our 3 hotels. We have the Home to Suites, it's going to be built soon, and then this is another Hilton product, Hampton Inn. And so the applicant is addressing the technical comments from staff, and also will be preparing a marketing study to clarify, how does this fit in with the market for hotel rooms in American Canyon. And so that's going to be a very interesting study and process. So they're working diligently on that. Staff is also working very hard on the Oat Hill project. That's pick an entitlement that you need from the city, potentially. This has it. It's general plan amendment, zone change, lot line adjustment, design permit, subdivision. And it needs to go to the Airport Lands Commission. So it's a big bundle here, but staff is doing a really good job of working through it. We've prepared one set of comments to the applicant. We received their response, and I think we're just on the cusp, perhaps tomorrow, of sending our comment letter back to the applicant. But I think it's getting pretty close to getting ready. This project will require a negative declaration. That's one of the processes in the California Environmental Quality Act. It requires a 30-day review period, so we need to kind of wrap up that document, get it out, public review, go through that public comment period, and then see what it brings, answer those comments, and then we'll be bringing it to the Planning Commission for your recommendation to the City Council. So it's a big project. That project also, would include constructing the missing segment of Napa Junction along the Napa Junction Elementary School frontage. So it kind of ends at Teresa, up where it picks up again at Hess. So that would be kind of a nice completion to a missing part of our road network. Also make it easier for people that live up there to walk down, catch a bus, or shop, or whatever. Let's see, we had a couple of withdrawn applications. We had a minor modification from Hearst Firewood for a relocated fence along Teresa. They rethought that and withdrawn that application. We also had a withdrawn application from the Broadway Street Apartments. That's the empty field next to the Mosquito Abatement District. Word from the applicant is the drainage system is very difficult to accommodate. It's very flat in that area, and it was a technical issue that was difficult for them. The rocket gas pre-application, that one also was withdrawn by the applicant. This is at Crawford and Highway 29 on the east side of the highway. That too has a lot of technical issues. There's a fault zone through there, it's narrow. The access is directly off Highway 29 at a T intersection, potentially needing a signal, Caltrans approval. All of that kind of spelled a little too much headache for the applicant. Let's see. Amcan Co-Living, that was another one that's withdrawn. We had a number that were kind of hanging on. So in December, I had a little extra time, so I called up some applicants to see what's going on. And so I have a list now. And this is one the applicant just decided not to pursue it. Building housing isn't their main profession. It was kind of they were just very, very good at researching, but I guess at the end of the day, it wasn't their cup of tea. So, and then there were other two cannabis applicants. They're I'm sure working diligently, but have no direct word from them on how they're coming along. So those are kind of the discretionary projects that are going on, but we do have a lot of exciting projects in the works that are all kind of teed up like airplanes landing at SFO. So, if you have any questions on this or other things on the chart, let me glad to answer them for you. Mr. Wong?
I had a question. What's happening with the Amazon warehouse? Do you have any building updates you can share?
They're going like gangbusters, so it's going very quickly. And constructions, they have a very aggressive construction pace. And we've been working very closely with them on in getting their inspections. So it's moving along very well. I don't have a construction completion date for you, but I'll make a note of that and update you at our next meeting.
Yeah, maybe give us a picture.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Yeah, and I'd love to, and I drove by the other day, the old strawberry field where the new hotel is.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything much happening with that?
They have their construction permit applications with us. The building permit is ready to go. Were it not for they didn't hire a company to prepare their fire alarm and fire sprinkler plans. Mm-hmm. Normally, we require that in conjunction with the building permit, but what their project manager said is it's less costly for them to hire a design build construction manager at the end, and they will prepare the fire alarm, fire sprinkler plans. So it slows down their building permit process, but he feels it saves them money, perhaps, and also there's coordination. You can't build a building unless the ground is prepared, and so they were a little slow in getting their improvement plans in for the utilities and the grading. They've done that, and they've worked pretty hard. We have a representative here tonight from Public Works Engineering. They take the lead on the improvement plans. I don't know if Mr. Bisnar, you wouldn't mind giving a quick update on how they're doing. I think they're getting pretty close. Are they?
Yes, that's correct. We're just trying to hammer out a few issues with them, but the way our plan check is moving, there's some little bit, issues that we're trying to solve, and hopefully within 2 weeks they can resubmit for their fourth plan check, and hopefully it could go through.
Oh, great! Thank you so much. Because I know there's I think there's a new hotel coming in Vallejo, right at Mini, near our border, the city border, I think. Great, thank you. Oh, there's one last question. I know you're waiting, Eric. Have we had any ADUs come in since the provision was passed? Any?
Oh. We were just talking about that. We have with COVID now, we don't see each other in the office necessarily all the time. So we have a daily update, and we were just talking about accessory dwelling units, and which I'm not going to find, so I'm looking for it. we have had more accessory dwelling units. There's no question about it. Let's see. So what I can do as a follow-up to this meeting is send the commission kind of a report that shares with you kind of a list of the accessory dwelling units that have been recently approved.
Oh, thank you so much.
You might be interested to know that because they're all individual houses, each one gets its own address.
Is it like a unit A or a unit B, or how is it numbered?
We have to, but in some cases there's no way around it. If the sequence left and right is usually there's even on one side and odd on the other, and so if it's 2 digits apart, well, there's not much you can do about it. So, but in many areas of the city, and as we look forward to addressing new areas of the city, we want to have some spaces in between because, well, numbers are cheap, so why not, right? That way, if you do have an attached accessory dwelling unit in your house and a detached, and state law is changing all the time, who knows, maybe there's more than one attached, who knows? But it gives the flexibility to be able to assign them their own address so that when you're living there, you can say you're from this address, and then the mail goes to you and not in a pool with perhaps some stranger that shares your address. So, there's little details and things. I get a lot of joy in working in this field, is making sure we think about these things through so that when things get built, they kind of function and work properly. So,
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good to hear you think about that as a city planner. And,
try to. And apartments. I'll pontificate one little bit more. I like it when everyone gets their own for real address, and you don't have on a street name and then apartment 123 or whatever. I just think it's better. Why not just give them a for real address, a number and a street name, like everybody else? So there's no, cultural distinction. And in most cases, technically, there's no technical reason why you couldn't do that. So everybody at the Valley View project has their own street address. Every unit has its own address. I don't know. I think it's kind of nice.
Is that a Canadian thing?
I was thinking it. I wasn't going to say it.
Well, see, as a New Yorker, it's impossible because you're so jam-packed.
It's
so
hard.
You couldn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
But and that's why I'm asking, because for me, I would never even think of that just because of where I'm from.
Yeah. Well, I've had a lot of career experience in well-planned suburban cities where you have the opportunity to kind of start fresh, and even though it's high density, you don't have to compromise. Just kind of starting from scratch.
Right. Gotcha.
So it gives it opportunities that you wouldn't get, when you're building a high-rise on Park Avenue. Oh, the stigma of a Park Avenue address. Maybe not. But you probably get the point.
Yes. So if I can ask you, I've got two. One I know is moving along a little bit. The other one I don't know exactly where they're at. But any updates on where Canyon Estates stands and where Rio Del Mar subdivision stands?
Oh.
I can give you an update on that one. For Canyon Estates, I met with the applicant this morning. He was happy to tell me that his improvement plans with the City of Vallejo. City of Vallejo is providing water for his subdivision. Their plans are already approved. They got approved yesterday. Their agreements with City of Vallejo is also on the works, and it's in the final draft, and it will be approved soon. The final maps he delivered to City Hall this morning, and I've passed it to Jason. I told Jason that, hey, Jason, everything is ready to go, and I think it's a matter of days now that their permits gonna be released. And according to the applicant, they're raring to go.
And these are the building permits.
No building permits yet, just the improvement plans, grading, starting, utilities, roads. Then after that, they could, once they start moving dirt, they will start applying for building permits. Because they will apply for building permits as the lots are sold.
Right.
And you might, add a little plug in here, you might wonder why the city of Vallejo is providing water. American Canyon for years has an approval and a pad and location all ready to go for a water tank that will serve the higher elevations in the city. But it's a lot of money, and it hasn't been funded yet and constructed. And so Canyon Estates is high enough in elevation that it can't be served by our regular water service. Vallejo has a much more robust water system delivery capacity. And so for a while with Canyon Estates, we talked to the applicant about a temporary pump station, which, needs maintenance, could break down. It's complicated. And so the idea of providing water from Vallejo, which there's a pipeline right there, it has the water pressure to reach the higher level of elevations. So there's no need to have any fancy equipment or pump stations or whatever. The capacity is right there. Now someday we'll, hopefully sooner than later, we'll get that high pressure water tank of our own, and then we will no longer need the Vallejo water. But
so at that point, would Canyon Estates switch over, or, is this a permanent agreement with Vallejo?
It's a temporary one until the city gets a water tank of its own.
Okay.
For those higher elevations.
Right. Yeah, no, I get that. And building a temporary or a permanent pump station to pump the water up is not an inexpensive project. Yeah.
Right, and who maintains it, and what if they don't, and there's a fire. Those kind of, it's complicated. So it's a very nice solution to be able to use water that's available, that it already has that ability to serve those homes.
That's
the other
Rio?
Rio Del Mar, the property is for sale. So it's the property owner's discretion.
Okay. So there's an approval out there, but the property owner is not going to be the one to execute on it. He's going to sell it off, and somebody else will inherit that approval.
Single-story, 4-bed, 2-bath houses on generous-sized lots. What's not to like?
What's the time window though for the approval? How long is that approval good for?
Look that up.
Okay.
Yeah, because things don't last forever.
Right.
Yeah. Good question.
Okay. Get back to me. It's okay.
I'll make a note of that.
No, that does it for me, but thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot of great stuff going on in our city.
Anything else, Mr. Cooper?
I think I've shared enough for now.
All right.
I do have one other quick one. The Paoli Loop, Watson Lane annexation, LAFCO. Where is all of that? Because that's a big one.
We kind of shifted gears a little while ago from a city-initiated annexation to a property owner-initiated annexation. And when that happened, the city attorney's office took over spearheading acquisition of the affidavits from the property owners. I don't know if Mr. Schwartz is up to speed on it, but it's in the kind of the realm of the city attorney's office.
Gotcha.
I'll have to defer to Mr. Ross on that, but I can tell him that you asked a question and have him send something to inform the commission on where that's at.
Awesome. Send him my regards, too.
I will.
All right, then we're going to move on to commissioner items. Any commissioner items?
I'm just going to make one comment about the approval we did earlier on Fume Cannabis. I think it's a good thing. I just hope that people understand that there is not going to be this amazing tax windfall that we're going to see from this or any further cannabis approval. And people who are looking at cannabis as this great financial generator of income for communities have not studied it and have not looked into it, because yes, there will be some tax benefits, but it is not going to be a significant driver. It's not going to drive more than any different business coming into the community would drive the tax base. So I think it's important that people understand that. And it wasn't appropriate for the discussion point during the discussion with Mr. Sklar and so on, because it's not directly impacting there. So, but I did want to make that point. So that's my commissioner item.
Thank you, Commissioner Altman. Any other members of the commission? Commissioner Wong, is your hand up? Oh.
Go ahead, Tammy.
Oh, okay. So I guess mine is more of a question. When we were discussing Circle K, I know we all had a number of questions about how many gas stations. And when we had this current discussion about the cannabis, I liked how straightforward it was. It was right in there saying the city has said we want up to 6 cannabis businesses.
Yeah.
And so, and I know you said that we have this meeting, the council is going to discuss it Tuesday at a workshop. But then I've also learned that the city has this document that's never really been, I guess, approved, this business development economic plan. So I would like to know, can you give us an update as to where that is in the process? Why hasn't it been approved? Can you speak more to that? Because I think that would be useful to us as planning commissioners to have that as a guideline for what our city vision is, our goals are.
Well, Commissioner Wong, it wouldn't be appropriate for me to comment on, why we do or don't have an economic development program. That's in the city manager's office. But the city council tomorrow afternoon is having a special meeting to talk about strategic issues. So something like you're discussing could be, some of the sort of things that are discussed, and would go into, ultimately a strategic plan that might lead ultimately to an economic development plan, perhaps.
Okay, thank you.
Can I jump back in for a second on that, Brent? It's been a long, long time, and I know COVID makes it more difficult, but it's been a long time since we've had any kind of joint meeting, and it's something that I am a big fan of, and especially when it comes to things like strategic planning. Commission was involved with strategic planning, it would make council and the planning commissioner were on the same page in general, or where we weren't, hashed it out in advance instead of having situations. They haven't been frequent, but there have been a couple where I think city council was surprised one way or another, sometimes good, sometimes bad, by what planning commission.
I do know that the city manager is considering having a joint meeting between the council and the commission at some time in the near future, because he's aware of the commission's interest in having that, and he agrees it's a good idea.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and it would be on a topic of mutual interest. It wouldn't be something boring like, well, I guess I wouldn't say. But,
Nothing's boring.
Be careful.
Something not related to us. That's what I mean.
Okay. Commissioner Navarro, anything?
I just wanted to take a moment to thank you, Chairman Goff, for your service as the chair. You've been a really great chair, so you're a hard act to follow. But thanks for your work, and I just thought I'd take a minute to recognize that, because I know it's extra work. So not that I'm looking forward to, but that I know that you have done. And I just wanted to thank you because you always run a real good meeting. So thanks.
Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to you running very good meetings. Commissioner Malloy, anything?
Just one. Remember I think it was a few years back, we went to the planning conference. I think it was APA or.
Yes.
I'm sure it's virtual, right? But do we still have the opportunity to participate in that, or? Okay.
Yes, we do, and it's also virtual, so it's easy to get to. You don't get stuck in toll booth traffic. Or Commissioner Wong and I went to a conference. We carpooled, and we were going there so fast, and then we got to the toll booth, and it was 45 minutes just to get through. That was all.
Oh, crud. Okay. So I'll look out.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you
can.
We'll send out. I believe in the spring is when the national conference happens, and then the fall is the state conference.
Yeah, I'd be interested in the state conference. I thought that was pretty helpful.
That was the one in Sacramento, right? Went to. Yeah, good.
This next year will be
a Commissioner item. Nice. All right, moving towards adjournment. We are done. Thank you very much, and I look forward to Commissioner Navarro's turn next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good evening.
You adjourn.
Take care.
Good job, Tyrone.
All right.
Take care, guys. Bye.
Bye.